Hi, Rachel. Hi, Colleen.
Hi, Elise. Hi, Colleen.
Hi, guys.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Ira.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
Hi, Chris. I see Chris. Hi, Chris. Congratulations on Avery. That's so good. Proud mama. You're mute.
Oh, you're talking to another Chris?
Ford College.
Chris Odell.
Oh, Chris O'Dell.
My
Yes,
daughter
congratulations.
got into college. I'm proud of her and her daughter. She always helped us with Red Day.
I was trying to picture Christopher as a proud mama. I was a little confused. I think Chris was having the same problem.
Yeah.
Well, we got to get back to work so we can afford to pay it.
Yeah. It's true. Does anybody have success in getting listings or sales virtually done?
That's what we're gonna be talking about today. We
Good.
have a guest
Segue there.
speaker. Yeah, that actually
Here.
took 3 listings last week virtually, so.
So we actually have, I think we should have, is Scott Leaf our
Yeah,
guest?
Scott's
Hey.
gonna start.
Okay, so we have
What's going on? Hey,
Scott.
Al.
We should have Jim Mammarella, who's given us presentations in the past, who's my financial advisor, and he's going to give us some financial advice during this difficult time. And we also have Kimberly. Is Kimberly on?
Yeah, I see
I'm
her.
here.
All right. So I know Kimberly has a hard stop at 3:15, so we're going to start with Kimberly, and then we'll go from there. Is Alyssa on? So Kimberly, Alyssa suggested that we kind of feature you today because you, despite all the difficulties going on around you, that you've been thriving in this market, and we just wanted to kind of have you on to talk a little bit about what you're doing and maybe inspire some of our other agents. So we'll turn it over to you. If you could just maybe tell us a little bit about what you've been doing, and maybe a little bit about yourself. How long you've been in the business and so on.
Hi, guys. So basically, I've been in real estate for about a year and a half, full-time for the past year. And recently, I've been calling a lot of expireds. So you guys teach us in all of our trainings and our coachings to pretty much do 3 things: pick up the phone, be consistent, and follow up. And that's pretty much what I've been doing. I've been calling people that I've been calling since March of last year. And whether it be just leaving messages and pretty much annoying them, on a weekly basis that they hear my name and they're not calling me back. But now I'm actually, I've called them, I'm checking in on them and their families and just having a conversation with them, not about real estate. And I guess it's just timing and being consistent with following up. They're calling me back and they're saying, hey, for whatever reason, they still need to sell their home. And because I'm the one that's been calling them religiously for a year, annoying them, they're happy to talk to me because I'm not somebody that's in their household that they have to look at all day. And I'm a fresh face and a fresh voice. And they constantly hear my name. So I'm staying on the forefront, throughout all of this. So I'm just being consistent and following up. And I encourage everybody to continuously do that. I'm calling them for a year and they're going to be ready eventually to list. And you want to be the one that's there when they're ready.
That's great advice. So were you able to actually close a few deals during this, I guess, lockdown, for lack of a better word?
So right now, all I've done, I've gotten 2 listings signed and I'm waiting for the 3rd one just because we have to do everything via e-sign and you have to put on the MLS within 24 hours. So we still have to get the photography done and, I have to be sensitive to their schedules of letting somebody in their home. One of them, she's a nurse, so she works nights and she has an elderly mother in the house. So we have to set up a time where we could get that stuff done and then get them up on the MLS. But everybody that I'm talking to right now is happy to talk to somebody, whether it be about real estate or just life in general. They want to hear something, other than what they see on the news. And they're actually, they have no problem signing the paperwork now, just as long as I can explain to them the new ways of selling real estate via, virtual showings and open houses. And they totally understand it.
Great, great. So as you call these people, like, what do those phone calls look like? You call them up and what would you say? Is there a script, or you just, how does that work?
Right now, I'm not using a script unless they're giving me any objections, which I really haven't had, to be honest with you. It's been pretty simple. It's just, hey, Al, how are you? It's Kim with Keller Williams. I know we've spoken in the past, or I've left you messages. I'm just reaching out to all of my clients and anybody that I've been in contact with to check in and see how you and your family are doing. Is there anything that you need or that I can help you with? And then that just opens up dialogue, and it's just people talking to people. We're just having normal conversations.
Got it. Just people talking to people. That's great. I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense what you say. I think sometimes people in a difficult time feel like people don't want to be bothered, but I think in this environment, people are so happy to hear from people. Our team leaders say the same thing as they call through our rosters and reach out to our agents. They're happy to hear from our team leaders, even agents from other companies. It's like in a difficult time, let's say you have somebody pass away, people are always like, oh, I don't want to bother, somebody during a difficult time. But I would say, 99 times out of 100 in the time of need, people want to hear from you. If they don't want to talk to you, that they won't pick up. But, I don't think it's going to be perceived negatively if you're just, you're not giving a hardball sales pitch and you're just kind of calling to check in and see how people are doing,
Exactly. And you don't know what their situation is. Like, I'm home by myself, so I look forward to hearing from, other people. And people that I deal with, I think probably only the person who cuts my hair has actually called to check in on me. But when you think about that, nobody really who you deal with, like that checks in on you. So I think that they appreciate that. They might be home with their husbands or wives or children that are driving them crazy. And, they're excited to hear from somebody different. You don't know what their situation is at home. So I just encourage everybody to pick up the phone, make a phone call, whether it's your Sphere, a FSBO, an Expired. Everybody has somebody to call, have the conversation, just be genuine. And, we're all like that anyway. And just follow up and be consistent. And then, every morning we have coaching calls with Coach John, Coach Michael, and Alyssa at 9:30. Everybody should get on there and get on the coaching calls. And then we have Power Hour right after that, and just start making calls.
Sounds great. Sounds like you have a great mindset, and it's showing up in your ability to continue to do business. Anyone have any questions?
There's
for
a question
Kimberly?
in chat from Erin. She said, how did you address the mother in the house for the third listing during the virus?
So the lady and her mother, they're both on the deed. She is a nurse. The mother stays at home. So she's been communicating with her mom mostly for me. And then I just sent the paperwork with both of their names on it, and they both signed it. But the mother is there. I mean, she's not elderly. I think she's in her 60s or 70s. So it's not like she's old or sick or anything like that. It's just a matter of laying everything on the table, letting them know that how we move forward is going to be, safe for them. And then I have their best interest, and then we'll get it done.
So 60s and 70s is not
Be out in
considered,
September.
60s and 70s is not considered
That's
elderly.
not old.
I've been
that's not
telling my
old.
kids that since I'm elderly, they have to take care of me during this and not go out and see other people because I'm elderly. But I guess I don't qualify then. I got to try a new tact.
I like
All right, any
Kimberly.
other question for Kimberly? That's it? Nothing? No one else wants to know how you take 3 listings in the middle of a crisis? Come on.
Make your calls.
Make
You
your
have any
calls. If you had to give one piece of advice to people, what would it be? Just one piece of advice to kind of get through this with your business intact. What would it be, Kimberly?
Just pick up the phone and be genuine. Be in the forefront. Be out there. Be the one that they remember your name.
Is
Brian
there
has a
anybody
question.
on this call?
Thank you, Elise.
Go ahead, Brian.
So real quick, hi, everybody. Hope everybody's safe. So real quick, just wanted to say, do you have any scripts that you'd be willing to share?
I use Alyssa's scripts and all of the scripts that are given to us through Bold. I don't have my own script. I really just go off
Do you
of,
modify it?
I modify it per conversation, it's just.
I mean, because of the pandemic. I don't want to step on your
No,
word.
no, exactly what I said to Al is, hi, this is Kim Keller Williams. We've spoken before. I was just reaching out to everybody to see, how you and your family are doing. And it just goes from there. There's no script unless they hit me with, like a lot of people are saying, oh, is real estate, how's the market now? It's probably terrible. Then, I'll come back to them with, it's not. People are still selling. People still have to move. Their leases are expiring, they still are, their families are expanding, they're retiring. I mean, there's still things that, the world is still moving at a different and a slower pace, but people still need to get things done. So
Excellent.
conversation is not really a script.
Beautiful.
Taylor asked, how do you plan on showing the home when it comes on the market?
Everything's going to be done virtually. Now that we're allowed to show homes, I'm personally not going to be going to show homes, but in the particular case where the people live there, we're going to go according to a virtual. And then when people are allowed to, when this is all over, if it's not offer accepted and under contract, we'll open it up for people to have physical showings. They're not taking any physical showings. I have another one that's vacant as of tomorrow. So we'll allow other people to show it. Again, I'm personally not going to be showing it, but I just have to adjust it according to how the seller wants to move forward.
All right, awesome. Anything else for Kimberly before we move on? Well,
Just gratitude. Thank you, Kimberly.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's inspiring to hear, how you're handling this, and for me, and I'm sure it is for all the people on this call. So thank you for taking the time, and thanks for the great work that you're doing.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye.
All right. Do we have Jim? Is Jim Mammarella on the call, Chris, or Elise? Do you know?
I'll look for him, but we also have Scott.
All right. Let's go to Scott then.
All right. Thank you, Al. And Kim, great stuff. Good work. Kudos to you for doing that stuff in a tough environment. I've said for years, I've probably talked with many of you over time, like a snow day, great opportunity to make calls because people are home. So kind of same mindset now that, you can call your clients. I've been on the phone a lot myself. So absolutely great opportunities there. Lots of crazy stuff going on in the mortgage business. Those of you who are on the call an hour ago with me, you're going to hear some of the same stuff, but I got a lot of people on this call who weren't on that call. So first of all, mortgage rates are extremely volatile. There are still some aggressive rates out there with primarily purchases and a rate and term refinancing, because a lot of you have been sending refis our way. So thank you for that. Most importantly, for those of you who see a lot of FHA loans coming through your sales, they're going to be a near impossibility in the short run. They're going to be very difficult. They can't bring on non-occupied co-borrowers, so mom and dad can't bring on the loan, for example, right now. There's levels of reserves, which has always been something of a feature that you didn't have to deal with on FHA loans. So now you've got to deal with them, and the rates are through the roof. And the short story on that is they're higher risk loans. That means the secondary market doesn't want to take them, and a lot of investors are staying away from FHA loans right now. So it's to do those. So you want, and especially if you've got somebody in a renovation loan as well. Now, if your loan is in process and you're locked, you're fine. But if you're starting from scratch on an FHA loan, you're going to have a lot of headaches. So please try to avoid those. Moving over to Fannie and Freddie, those are still going on. As I had told a lot of people earlier, loans that are under the high balance jumbo limit of $510,400, those loans below that, still seeing some aggressive rates, but the rates are also very volatile. You can get a great rate in the morning. I've seen like 3.25 in the afternoon, then 5 or in the morning, then 5 in the afternoon, literally. So we tend to see that the rates have been good in the mid-morning when the Fed is putting money into mortgage-backed securities, and those are the opportunities. So I spend a lot of the morning trying to get your clients locked and moving forward from there. Appraisals are a big hot issue right now as well. A lot of people are asking about drive-bys or desktop reviews. Basically, we're looking for appraisal waivers right out of the gate. We don't always get that, but say there's a scenario where for whatever reason, the appraiser won't go in or the owner won't allow the appraiser in. Those are situations that they have to go back to the appraisal management company and the lender and request a desktop or a drive-by. So that can't be requested out of the gate. We've got to order a normal appraisal, but the opportunities for those have increased, obviously, and we're seeing more of those. So quick thumbnail of a few things going on. Any specific questions? Good.
I got one.
Ryan. Go,
Yeah.
bro.
So yesterday, how are we doing, buddy? So yesterday, I spoke with one gentleman, and he said that you want to check in with the lender. So you're saying that if you're locked in, you're good. That's kind of conflicting with. I spoke with the gentleman yesterday. I don't remember his name. So are you saying that if you're locked in with an FHA, then the rates won't change, or that you will still be able to get an FHA, but the rates could change?
No, if your rate is locked, your rate is locked. So you don't want to let it expire. So they're great. What FHA traditionally does, and they're doing it in this case, they're grandfathering. So effective now, everything going forward is going to be a total nightmare to get done for the foreseeable future. Anything that's locked in process, you should be able to close as is.
Thank you, handsome.
Anytime, my brother. What else we
Hi,
got?
Scott. It's Sandy. I'm in. How are you?
Hey, Sandy, I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm okay. I have a question. A few days ago, I was watching the news and Powell got on and said that if lenders stop lending or start to tighten up, that he's actually prepared to go in and direct lend. Have you heard anything about that? And if so, when and how would that happen?
I haven't heard that, and so that hasn't come up specifically in our company conference calls, which have been very frequent. So it's hard to say. I don't think you're going to see lenders stop lending because it'll come down to the cash flow of that particular company. At Atlantic, we've got great cash flow, so we're secure for the foreseeable future. Where you're seeing problems come up with lenders stopping, or a lot of the what they call the non-QM programs, the niche programs, the bank statements, the foreign nationals, that kind of thing, they're going to be on the shelf for the short run as well, because a lot of those investors don't have the liquidity, and those programs have been pulled off the table about 2 weeks now.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? All right, well, certainly feel free to reach out to me directly if you've got any questions we didn't address here.
All right, cool.
All right,
Thank you very much.
guys.
Is Alyssa on? Alyssa actually has a doctor who's going to be joining us who has some expertise in this area. I know a lot of you have been asking us to get a medical professional on here to answer some questions, but I don't know if
I see her.
I don't know.
I'm here. He's in the process of joining now. He had to jump onto his computer, but Dr. Amir Rabadi is going to be joining us. He is a medical doctor in Yonkers, which is obviously kind of in the heart of this. And he serves on the board that advises the mayor in Westchester. So he should be joining us any second now, just to kind of address this. Obviously, please, he's not here to diagnose anyone's symptoms. So he won't be answering any individual questions, but just to kind of give us an overview from the medical perspective of this and what this looks like and what his timeline is for this.
All right, so while we're waiting for the doc, let's go to Jim Mammarella. Jim's just going to talk a little bit about sound financial moves during this time, and then open it up, answer any of your questions.
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
All right, great. So I think that the first thing, I'm sure there's a lot of stress in the room. I think the first thing is that everybody should just calm down. I do think the economy is strong. I also think that this could provide a tremendous opportunity for everybody. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, you can join with computer audio. It might. I can make out what you're
Yeah,
saying.
I'm having some problems with the program. That's why I went on the phone, and my screen's locked up right now, so I wasn't sure if everybody could still hear me.
We can hear you and we can see you. It sounds a little odd, but we can make it out. It sounds like you're on a walkie-talkie, but we can make it out.
Okay, good enough. So, I think it's also an opportunity to look how everybody's allocated. And I think one of the things that we try and teach our clients is we try and preach liquidity, and having liquidity is obviously very, very important. Again, I think that this could become a tremendous opportunity for those that do have liquidity. consider that the market has dropped. It's dropping again today, but it's been down 25, 30%. Obviously, in your business, real estate has been affected. So when we do come out of this, if you're sitting on cash, you have a tremendous opportunity to maybe pick up some assets at a discount. I also think that, traditional bonds and stocks obviously are not doing well. I believe it was Scott who was just talking about mortgage rates. The bond market is very volatile. So I think it's important that people look at how they're actually mitigating risk. A lot of the clients that we meet with are mitigating risk with bonds. And I could tell you that the corporate bond index was down like 15% as of yesterday. So I think there are some other asset classes that you can look to help mitigate risk.
And what would those be, Jim?
Well, I think, there is things such as equity index annuities, for example, where your principal is guaranteed and you can participate in the upside of the market. There are also things like whole life insurance that, people haven't really talked about, but not only does it build liquidity, but that cash value is 100% guaranteed, and it's going to increase every single year. I talked to one of my clients yesterday. He actually ran a lot of the emergency rooms in Delaware County. He's a physician. He's been my client for 20 years, and he's sitting on a significant amount of cash value within his policies. And he's very comforted by that because his cash values are only going to grow, and he's sitting on a tremendous amount of liquidity. And he's actually looking at, potentially buying a building or two within the next month or so because of all this.
Wow. So everybody go out and buy a building is what we're saying.
Absolutely.
All right.
I do
And I
commercial.
think that gets back to having different sources of income. I mean, I think your business is the number one driver of your wealth. But if you have opportunities to buy into title, if you have opportunities, to have rental properties, maybe some real estate syndications, non-traditional asset classes where you have passive income coming in, you could certainly see that at a time like this where that would be beneficial.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, Jim, can you stay on with us for a little bit? We want to go to the doctor, given that he's in the middle of a crisis. I don't know how long we'll have him for. And
Absolutely, no problem.
We'll come back to you. So, Dr. Rabadi, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Are you on?
I am on. How are you?
I'm doing
Hope you're all
well.
safe.
I think we are. First off, let us all thank you for being on the front lines during this crisis. You guys are absolutely, real heroes, and you have all of our thanks and praise, and you're in all of our prayers. So thanks for the great work that you do.
Thank you for the prayers. We appreciate that. So my name is Amir Rabadi. I'm a physician here in Westchester County in Yonkers, New York. I'm a medical director of a hospital called St. John's Riverside. I'm also a clinical professor at New York Medical College. So we've been doing a lot of back and forth between academics and frontline. And it's everything you see on TV is pretty much what we're doing every single day. We're having the ER is overwhelmed. The hospital itself is packed. We're trying to get some of the patients that are non-COVID over to hospitals. We're trying to kind of put all our patients all in one area that are non-COVID. So my hospital, St. John's, has a sister hospital, and we're trying to just send people with just like heart disease and stroke and other illnesses to that hospital and keep all the coronas in one hospital. And that's the busy part we're doing the next 24 hours.
Makes sense.
Just wanted to know, I'm here. I was invited just to kind of give a little perspective on what we're doing, and I want anyone can fire in and just ask any questions. But some of the prevention, I think most of you are pretty aware and up to date with social media and the news, and it really hasn't changed. The prevention is still the same. Try to isolate and everyone stay home as much as possible. Sanitize as much as you can. Masks in the beginning, remember they said don't wear masks. As of Sunday, a new report came out that said masks do help prevent. So if you have a mask and you're going out in public, wear the mask. Gloves are good too, as long as you take them off. You shouldn't, wear the same gloves all day when you're going outside and coming back into your house. Eating healthy are very important. Vitamin C, big study right now, whether or not I'm a big fan of it, 2,000 milligrams daily for 7 days just to boost your immune system, and then go 1,000 daily after that. Zinc got a great write-up for prevention. So 220 micrograms of zinc is recommended right now. And the fruits and vegetables that are really colorful are high in a vitamin called riboflavin, which comes from the B complex. And that is great for prevention and to boost your immune system. So boosting your immune system in general is always good for you. Right now, it's definitely important to do. Minimize contact with others. Obviously, most of the gyms are closed, the malls, so big crowded areas. Can you leave the house is a question. The answer is yes. You can leave the house, go for a nice walk. I wouldn't take a walk into a big crowded area, obviously. You got to use common sense. And if you're getting symptoms, another big question right now I'm getting is, and this has changed over the last several weeks, if you're exposed to someone who's positive, do you quarantine yourself? The answer is no, not right away. Otherwise, no one's going to go to work ever again. Everyone here pretty much knows someone who's positive. If you are exposed to someone, you monitor your symptoms, check for any fevers. That's the big one that's holding people or preventing people from going to work. If you have a fever, stay home, call your healthcare provider or call the hotlines or the DOH wherever you live and tell them, listen, I was exposed to someone, I'm having a low-grade fever or whatever my fever is, what should I do? And the answer usually right now is just stay home, monitor, take Tylenol, not ibuprofen. France just did a major study with ibuprofen. That's still not concrete. However, taking Tylenol, 2 capsules twice a day, or up to 3 times a day for fevers and aches. And if you're living with someone, isolate yourself from that person as much as you can. Wear a mask when you leave the room and wipe down all the surface areas, whether it's the railing, the faucets, the toilet handle, anything that you touch should be wiped down after. This is the new society we live in now. It's going to be a bleach and Lysol society.
We have a couple questions in chat. Do you have any advice for makeshift masks while N95 masks are difficult to get?
Yeah, listen, right now, N95s are difficult. I'm having a hard time getting masks right now. They're on back order or they're sold right now in the black market. Everyone saw the news yesterday what happened in Brooklyn when they found the thousands of masks of N95 being sold. Any mask that you can make, there's a lot of makeshift masks out there. They're not recommended for healthcare professionals, but for lay people that are going outside, it helps. You know, anything helps right now. So there's a funny commercial I saw with someone wearing a bandana and they mistook him for a robber, for a burglar. So be careful with those.
Is it still 14-day incubation period if you've been exposed?
So 4 days of incubation, and then the symptoms last, the duration is 5 to 11 and a half days. And then after the 11 and a half days, it's 3 consecutive days of no fever. And then you're off quarantine.
Can, after self-quarantine, your family did the same and live separately, can you go?
Hello?
Sorry, my computer, I froze for a second.
Yeah.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm on.
I think maybe it's just Lalise maybe that's having.
Yeah, if
trouble.
Chris or Al could take over, please.
So I'm sorry, Doctor, you do.
So Al, I have a question.
back
This
for
is
me.
Sharon. Oh,
Go ahead. Whoever had a question for the doctor. Go ahead.
I did in the chat. If you see in the chat, if you've been self-quarantining for almost 3 weeks and your family's been self-quarantining for around the same time, am I allowed to go see them after being 3 weeks apart?
Yes, as long as they're fever-free.
Yes, everybody's fever free.
You should still wear them. Like, you should still take all the precautions. Those are all just recommendations right now, but definitely after the quarantine is over and you are fever free, you can go back to.
I mean, I've never been, none of us have ever had a fever or anything like that. We just want to be able to have like Passover next week together. And I want to make sure it's safe.
We don't want large crowds of people though. How many?
It'll be
people?
like 6 of us.
Yeah, 6 should be fine. 6 feet apart on the dinner table.
6 feet apart. It's gonna be a very long table.
A long table, I know. No, just, try not to hunt, bunch all each other. Everyone, if anyone's coughing or sneezing, it's got to be really, they're saying, you saw the commercials on social media, when they sneeze or cough, it's towards your sleeve. Try to keep it controlled.
So if we go to somebody's house, we should wear a mask to their house still?
There's nothing wrong. That's a great precaution. I think it's a good idea to still be really aware of this corona. It's not going anywhere. It's going to be here for-
Obviously.
Yeah, it's going to. So all the facts were wrong in February. Everyone said 2-3 weeks it'll get better. Look, we're going into April.
It's crazy.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
So, Doctor, can
have
I
a question.
continue?
What,
Oh, Al.
how do you know when to go to the hospital? Let's say you think you have it and you're at home and you're sick, but I think they're saying, unless you're really sick, you don't want to take a bed from somebody who's more seriously sick. What would trigger actually going to the hospital if you were sick?
Right. So the advice we're saying is, once you've spoken to your healthcare provider, if you don't have one, you call the hotline and you discuss your symptoms. If the symptoms get worse with shortness of breath, weakness, decreased appetite, dehydration, you got to go to the hospital, and you just got to call ahead and let them know that you're coming in so that they can meet. Most hospitals have a tent set up outside where they screen all their patients.
And I don't have a mask, but for people that have masks, if they just have one mask, can they keep reusing that mask like day after day, or how does that work?
It's a good question. So they're saying leave it in a brown paper bag, not a Ziploc bag or plastic bag. Leave it in a brown paper bag. The N95 mask can be cleaned. It's on a YouTube video. You just pour water over it, spray it with a little bleach, and then keeps just rinsing it off, and then let it dry overnight. You can use the N95s again. The fabric ones, obviously, you wash those, it's going to get torn up. But if you keep the mask in a brown paper bag, and you can use it the next day.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Al, is it okay if I continue with Jerry Odell?
Yeah. I didn't even know you
Doctor.
started, so of course.
Hello.
Yeah, I did start. So, Doctor, thank you for being with us. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
Okay, so I've been in since March 1st, and we're not even halfway up to hit the peak of this, and I'm very willing and am doing what I need to do to quarantine, or just isolate, I should say. So on a bigger picture, I'm concerned about 33 states are shut down or in a shutdown mode, and the rest are not. And if we do all this isolation, and we get on the other side of the curve, and we get to the point like China where there's no new cases, how do we prevent, other than a vaccine being, and I'd like to know the timing on the vaccine as well, other than a vaccine being developed, how do we prevent people from coming from those states back into our states and reinfecting us?
Yeah, we can't. And the answer is going to be, we got to get that testing available. If we can get the testing available, and where it becomes just simple, like a flu swab for everyone, and that's what we're using now. We're using a flu swab to diagnose this, and it takes 5 to 7 days to come back. These 15-minute and 60-minute tests have to be available to the public. And once we're able to do that, that's how we can kind of mark who's positive. Other thing I see right now, I don't know if you all doing it at work. When you walk into a building, a lot of people have a table set up outside where they're checking temperatures. I think that's a great idea to see who has a fever or not. And obviously, we don't let those people into the building.
We have a question in chat. If we want to send food to the staff at the ICU, how can we find out hospital policies?
Right. So each hospital has a different policy. People are just dropping food off in bottles of wine at the ER. I take the wine most of the time, and it's a lot of fun. But yeah, you can call the.
I think that after work, right?
Yeah, call your local hospital. Find out. Tell them you'd like to send over some lunch. Hillary and Bill Clinton just sent us pizza last weekend, and they did that for all the Westchester hospitals. There was a question before that they asked me about the vaccine. Johnson & Johnson just got on track. They're on fast track with a company called NVAX, which is a great stock, by the way, since you guys were talking finances. NVAX. that is right now they're on a fast mode for a vaccine. We're looking at 3 to 6 months. They're said by July, hopefully we'll see, but 3 to 6 months.
Wow.
The other thing is the convalescent plasmapheresis at Mount Sinai in New York City, where they're taking the positive patient's blood, spinning their blood, and injecting the antibodies into the infected patients now to see if they can build immunity. That's a hot thing going on. And interleukin-6 study they did in Italy, it failed. That was injecting antibodies into people. So there's a lot of new different things. Hydroxychloroquinolone, the malaria drug, has been proven right now to be the best antidote that we're using. It's got a tremendous way of preventing the virus from expanding in our body and replicating. So it's shutting down the virus. It prevents it from making more bad cells. And they did a study with malaria patients. A lot of the malaria patients, the rheumatoid arthritis patients, and the patients from Africa that were on hydroxychloroquinolone, we're looking at a large study that should be back in a few weeks that shows the rate of infection is very low with those patients. So it's a very promising drug. It's an old drug. It was made in the 1950s and 60s. And it looks like right now that's the best treatment.
But doctor, how come they're not doing that more often with more patients? I do see
That's
it.
a great question. We're using it in the hospital. It's first line right now. Hydroxychloroquinolone has a bad side effect of arrhythmias, cardiac arrhythmias. It can give you a fatal arrhythmia. So by just taking it without being monitored, people can have sudden cardiac arrest and die. So that's not something we want to just advertise out there as the treatment.
Is there any clarity about if you've had the virus, will you get it again?
Good question. So my thoughts so far, and this is my medical opinion, this will be like the influenza where every year you can get it. There's no clear concrete evidence of otherwise right now. We're not sure.
And how about the people who are positive and don't know if they don't have a fever?
Most dangerous. Those are the most dangerous ones. We call them the positive asymptomatic patients. They're the ones. They're the spreaders. They're the ones walking around spreading this virus right now. What do we do with them? And it goes back to the question earlier. We got to get the testing available. It's got to become a test for all. We find out who's positive, we quarantine them, and this way we can kind of shift people into different areas while this disease, hopefully in the next, I would say now I'm looking at 3 months for it to clear up.
If we get tests to the masses but don't have a vaccine, will we be able to get back to normal?
Yeah, because after the 14 to 21 day quarantine and you're clear, you go back into an area with people that are also clear. You keep the people that are negatives together and keep the positives home. And that's going to be the pathway right now until we get the vaccine.
For patients who are taking the drugs that you mentioned, are they more protected from the virus, from getting the virus?
We don't take it prophylactically. We take it only when they're positive. Things to take prophylactically are vitamins, build up your immune system. Hydroxychloroquinolone and azithromycin are not medications to take prophylactically.
How long can you have it and not know?
The duration is anywhere between 5 to 11 and a half days for the people that are positive with symptoms. For asymptomatic, they can carry it up to 14 to 21 days.
In your opinion, should agents show houses?
Should they show houses now?
Yeah.
I think each showing should be done with some thought, where if you're just going to show a house to one person, obviously I think there's nothing wrong with that. But to do an open house where people are walking around, I've been to open houses before where there's tons of people just walking around the house. You're basically asking for the disease. Right now is not a good time to do something like that.
Okay.
I have a question. If you have had it and you've cleared it, 14 days are gone, and at least for this bout of it, you can't get it again. Can you still pass it on to someone? Or if you've had it and it's cleared your system, you no longer can pass it on to anyone?
Right. So once you've been quarantined and you're fever free, you're considered positive, treated, and quarantined.
So this is a very specific question. It'll be my last question. So if you had a family member who thought they had it early on, but didn't have horrible symptoms, they were sick, they had fever, they had all of that stuff, but they didn't have testing yet. The symptoms have cleared. Now, our concern is that family member thinks, I've had it, now I'm immune, And the concern is they're going to feel like they can go out and be out in the world, but it's not 100% confirmed, but they can't go and get a test because now they're not symptomatic. What do you do about that?
That's a great question. So we'll start a little bit. I think the virus has been here for at least 3 or 4 months, and I'll tell you why. I've had so many patients that came in with these symptoms of aches and pains and fevers and headache and shortness of breath and burning sensation in their chest and weakness. And we would swab them for the flu, or we would swab them for a viral panel. And what that does, it gives me an entire panel of all the different types of viruses that might have affected this patient. And the flu would come back negative, and the entire parainfluenza and the rhinoviruses and all of the other types of RSVs came back negative. And we kind of just scratched our heads and said, all right, this is a virus. And my wife was one of them in January. And it kind of just set its course. After a week, 10 days, she got better. And we look back now, if we had the COVID testing in January, a lot of those patients would have been positive. And my wife was one of many that I've seen. We would have had more positives. We could have shut this down earlier.
Is that the antibody test? Like if you down the road, maybe you can take an antibody test and know if you had it or not?
That's the one we need to know now. That's an IgG, IgM antibody test. We're trying to get that for the first line healthcare workers. It's very important that we get that because we want to know if the healthcare workers, we're taking care of all of you. Are we spreading it amongst ourselves and back to you guys? So that's an important test we're trying to get really moving.
Do you think that they will have home testing available?
Yeah, I think they'll have home testing available. This is going to turn into a great opportunity for someone to make a lot of money.
So I think we could keep you on for 2 hours, and if you could stay on, Doctor, we'll keep asking you questions. But I know you only had 10 minutes. So
I got 2 minutes left. It's 3:43. I got 2 minutes left, and I'm out of here. So if someone wants to give me one more question,
Can I ask a question?
please.
If somebody is in an apartment with roommates and one of the girlfriends is a nurse on the front line, will be working directly with COVID patients, should she no longer be sleeping at the apartment?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you when I come home, I go through my garage. My wife has a set of clothes waiting for me. I go right into a hot shower, put the fresh clothes on, and the clothes that I wore to work go into a bag right into the laundry bin. You got to take that precaution. So if she's not doing that and he or she are walking right into the room with their clothes on, that's really not a good idea.
Okay.
All right.
That case would be not to be there.
Well, he or she should isolate themselves. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
A lot
you
of
so
medical
much.
providers, yeah, no problem. A lot of medical providers are sleeping in hotels and just kind of staying away from their family.
Right, I agree. Thank you. And I thank
some
you
of
for
them-
everything you're doing.
It sounds like we have time for one last question, and preferably somebody who hasn't already asked a question to give people a chance. Is there someone else out there that hasn't had a chance to ask? We have 1 minute.
Or we could spend the 1 minute to give gratitude to you and thank you so much for.
You guys are awesome. Thank you so much.
Really
Good for
needed
us.
this so much. Thank you. We feel.
Thank you very much.
Do this again next time if you
Very
like.
kind.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Stay healthy.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Be safe, Doctor.
All right.
That's
Try
great.
to top-
Thank
Try
you.
to top that, Jim.
That was outstanding.
It really was.
Wow.
How do you
Thank you.
top that? There's no way.
Try to top that, Jim. You're
Right.
boring old financial stuff, and we just had a hero on.
About it. That was awesome.
So in all seriousness, I forget where we left off with you. Thank you for being flexible, but obviously when you can get somebody like that on, he's kind of busy saving lives, so we got to, take it when we can get it.
Absolutely.
So you were saying everybody should buy an apartment building, and then what else?
I think that, it's good to have traditional asset classes. My point was that a lot of people think bonds are a way to mitigate risk. A lot of portfolios that we reviewed, and it's not always a great way to mitigate risk. I think, people should review maybe with their investment professional an investment policy statement, look at other ways to mitigate risk besides just traditional bonds. I think it's great to have different sources of income and non-traditional asset classes, and hard assets such as real estate.
What do you think? I've always professed in people buying real estate, buying, fractional shares of apartment buildings. But do you feel like this is a good time to make those kind of investments when people are getting, not going to be paying their rent and things like that? Is it a good or a bad time to be doing those kind of investments? Not that
Yeah,
people have money laying around for investments anyway, but
I think now's a good time to be sitting on liquidity and to just stay liquid. But that's actually a great point, is that real estate, a lot of people think that real estate is immune. I've read a lot where, well, if the values of real estate drop, people are going to rent more, but you could see that that's not obviously the case now. And then you can't evict. So that's obviously hurting some of those investments. So for now, I would just try and stay liquid and kind of wait and see what's happening with the development. Like the doctor said, wait and see what's happening with the development of this virus. And then, make a decision when this starts to clear up and we see the full extent of this.
makes sense. Makes sense. All right. Does anybody have any financial questions were you done, Jim, and with your?
Yeah, sure.
So does anybody have any specific questions? Jim is definitely an expert in the field and is well-versed, stocks, bonds, real estate, alternative investments. Does anybody have any questions at all?
Yeah, I do. Jim, how do you define a non-traditional asset class? Like what would that comprise of?
That could be comprised of many different asset classes. That could actually be things such as, as simple as like commodities. Could also be like real estate syndications that Al was talking about. Any type of private placements, private equity, oil and gas, different ways to diversify. As opposed to just traditional stocks and bonds.
I have a question. Let me ask you.
I'm sorry, I didn't get that. I think you were muted.
Is this a good time to be buying stocks while the prices are down?
Yeah, I mean, it could be, but I think the whole idea is to have an investment policy statement. And what I mean by that is you should really have an investment plan and have a certain allocation. It should be matched to your risk score and, based on income factors and a variety of other factors. And I think you should kind of hold the course. I'm not a big believer in necessarily trying to time the market. I mean, you could see that last week, for example, the market was up and, today and yesterday, the market's down. So I think there's going to be a lot of volatility in the near future. And then I also think, when you look at from a business standpoint, some of these companies with unemployment, I mean, I do think the economy will rebound, but I don't know that we've necessarily hit the bottom. And I'm not a big believer in trying to time the market. I think if you have a good investment plan in place, you follow that plan.
I mean, I've kind of been playing.
There's a question in chat that says, do you suggest that we apply for the Paycheck Protection Program as an independent contractor?
I'm not that familiar with it to be able to give advice on that. We're still, as advisors, still kind of being educated on what's going on with the stimulus bill, exactly what's in there. So I think that's a good question for your accountant. And I don't know if Dean was on yesterday, but maybe
We
he
had
can
Dean on.
address that.
I actually think it's a good time to buy, but you have to use somebody who is a professional who understands how to do it, because otherwise it's too crazy and too volatile. I'm not sure if you agree with me or do you disagree?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm not a big believer in necessarily trying to time the market. In my particular firm, we manage about 80 million, and we use a lot of different institutional money managers within the portfolios. And of course, I'm checking clients, accounts on a daily basis. And a lot of them, there's a lot of money being held in cash right now. So I think what that's telling you is that they're not necessarily that gung-ho about diving in to buy equities. Okay. I think certain equities, there might be some opportunities, but I don't know that I'd go all in buying stocks.
No, I agree with you. Just certain things are like Teladoc and certain stocks are doing very well.
Like Zoom, for example.
Yes. Yeah. No, Zoom's down today.
But I mean, overall, I think this virus is going to change how a lot of people do business.
I tripled my money on some stocks,
Yes.
luckily.
So I think, again, I think the important thing is having, again, what we call an investment policy statement. And we actually look at very complex risk profiles for clients, what their underlying holdings are, and then developing a portfolio based on that, and then really stay in the course. Our analytics were able to kind of show a client, in the next 6 months, your range is going to be between negative 15% and positive 13%. And it's really about a client being comfortable with that, whatever that may be for that particular client.
Jim, you guys use, this may be a little more advanced for this, but you use options to hedge your long positions in markets like this?
So some of the money managers do, but the problem with that is that options have become very, very pricey. So obviously you're paying a premium for that. I mentioned that non-traditional asset classes such as like whole life insurance and equity index annuities, for example, where you can mitigate risk. So equity index annuities, you can't lose principal, but you're kind of capping off the upside. And the reason for that is you have these billion-dollar companies that are selling these annuities. What they're doing is they're buying options. And depending on the price of the options, because the market is very volatile, it's kind of dependent on capping the upside.
Right. Got it.
All right. For anybody who has specific questions after the call, I put Jim's contact info in the chat if you want to reach out to him directly. Any other questions for Jim?
Yes, Al.
Yep.
Would you buy some lots today? We have a lot of people that reach out to us that previously we put an offer and they're coming back to us. Would you buy some properties right now for new developments?
Yeah, I think they're on hold, certainly. But I think there's an opportunity. I think real estate is going to come out of this very well. I think when this all, shakes out, and I think agents will continue to do well after this all shakes out. I truly believe that. But again, I think that should fit in your overall investment plan. And if you're mitigating risk somewhere else, then, I think there's another opportunity. I think, Al, one thing I should mention to people is that, again, I'm not sure what's going on with the stimulus and what rules and regulations. But one thing I've been able to show clients is a lot of clients have money locked up in IRAs and 401ks. And we've been able to show them strategies on how to get income out of that and essentially avoid the 10% penalty and use that income stream to buy other assets, such as what someone just mentioned, lots and how to build houses, things of that nature. So there are some things that people can do.
Thank you. Just one more question. You seem to be a man that has been through this before, and you say you think this market will rebound. Just an estimate. What do you think? How long do you think it will take?
That's a great question. And I don't have a crystal ball, so I don't know the answer to that. I just, I am certainly a student of economics. I have a tremendous economics background, and I believe the economy was very strong beforehand. I think a lot's going to determine how small business owners come out of this. I primarily work with small business owners, and I actually gauge a lot of the economy based on how they're doing. So I think if small business owners, certainly, a lot of them are hurting and going to go under. But I think if they can rebound from this, the economy will rebound as well. But I do think, we had a very strong economy going into this. And I also think there's a lot of, we'll say, manipulation of fear to kind of drive down, the economy, so to speak. So I do think that we will rebound from this.
Someone in chat asked, and I think this was to your previous comment, don't you have UBIT fees then?
Well, I'm not necessarily suggesting buying the real estate inside the IRAs, if that's what they're referring to. Because then you're actually eliminating a lot of the tax benefits of real estate. What we're teaching clients is how to take an income stream from their IRAs, avoid the 10% penalty, and use that income stream to purchase the real estate outside the IRA. I'm not sure if that answers their question or not.
Okay. Any additional questions?
Yeah,
What are your-
I
what are
have
your-
one, Elise, about the IRA. So the 10% I understand, but you still have to pay tax on that afterwards, correct?
You do.
All right, so could you just repeat what you said to do with that money? If you take it, let's say you have the IRA, you take advantage of that 10% and you take out the whole IRA, then what happens?
Well, you're not taking out the whole IRA. You're taking actually an income stream. And there is, certain rules and regulations as to what that income stream actually is, to avoid the 10% penalty. So it's a set amount. But let's say I take that income stream and I finance a rental property. Do I get to depreciate that property? Yes. If I'm paying a mortgage on that property, do I get to write off the mortgage? Yes. So it's potentially, I can offset some of the income tax on that by purchasing the property. And in addition, there's many benefits to the real estate outside the IRA, such as, when I sell that property, I'm paying capital gains tax as opposed to ordinary income tax. My heirs get a step up in cost basis. So if I paid $500,000 for the property, depreciated it, and it's now worth $1 million, when I die, my son gets that property and he sells it the next day. He doesn't pay any income tax on that because it's based on his cost basis is based on the market value at the time of my death. If I have $1 million in an IRA and I die, my son's going to have to pay income tax on the whole $1 million. And he's going to lose a great, a great benefit that could be passed on to him.
Okay, thank you.
The last question was, what are your thoughts on money in 529 plans?
Well, I think it's fine if it's in there already. I'm not necessarily, a big proponent of continuing to fund the 529 plans. I think there's other ways to pay for college. I think, one of the downsides of 529 plans is the advisors kind of tout the fact that, well, hey, as your money's growing, it's growing tax-free. Well, when the market's, losing 20, 30%, do you get to deduct that? No. So I think money that's in there, it's fine. I use that to pay for college, but I'm not a big proponent of continuing to fund the 529 plans.
Okay.
You know what? I just want to interrupt real quick. I have to jump off for our daily OP call at 4:00, as well as the team leaders are joining us today. So I think there's at least one or two more questions, Jim. So if you guys want to keep going, but I have to jump off. Thank you, Jim, and thanks for everybody who joined the call today. Appreciate it.
And thanks for having me, Al.
I
No,
also,
thank you.
and yeah, thank you. And Al, you could go. I just want to let you all know that in KW Connect at 4:00, they're doing how to hold a virtual appointment and consultations. And I strongly recommend you guys watch that. Okay, any more questions for Jim? I'm waiting for an answer on the question I had asked. I don't see your question. I'm sorry, Amrita. Can you re-ask it?
I'm also going to post this video to YouTube. A bunch of people are asking me about wanting to share what the doctor was saying. So I'll have a YouTube link sometime this afternoon.
Thanks.
So my question was for Al. I had asked about a particular client who is positive COVID-19 and his wife had died of COVID-19. And I needed to understand what are the legal ramifications on what I'm allowed and supposed to disclose or not.
Okay, so I would just reach out to them via email.
Okay.
Do you have any other suggestions on alternatives to pay for college?
Yeah, I think alternatives can be a good way to pay for college if they're producing income. And I think, oh, I thought you meant alternative investments, but real estate, I think, is a great way to pay for college. I mean, if you're buying rental properties, for example, and they're producing positive cash flow, you use the positive cash flow for college. And then after you've paid for college, you still own that asset. And that's the disadvantage with 529s is ultimately you're giving all that money to college, you'll never get it back. And you're not earning any type of rate of return, where if you're using things, for example, like rental properties, you can use the cash flow, pay for college, or at least help pay for college, and then you're maintaining control of that asset.
Okay, thank you so much. Any more questions? Good.
Just one question, Elise. So what if you own a home and you take an equity line of credit? If you have plenty of equity in your home and you want to pay for college, do you recommend that?
Yeah, that might not be a bad way. Because, you know, it depends on interest rates at the time and other liquidity factors that you may have, but, you know, that could certainly come into play. Yes.
Great.
Can I just get some clearance on the 529? If you already have a 529, do you recommend, I know you said not to fund it, but just leave it as it is and let it just grow what you have, or take it out and invest in somewhere else?
Yeah, you hit penalties if you take it out. So once it's in there, it's kind of in there.
Okay.
And I think it's fine that it's in there. You know, at least you put some money away to save for college. I'm just saying I wouldn't necessarily continue to fund it at a high rate.
Okay. It transferred from one child to another, right? If one
Right.
child doesn't go, okay.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
One more question. Oh, go ahead, Elise.
No, I have to jump on another call, and this is on my account. So I just want
And I
to
do as
say
well.
thank you so much, Jim, for your
Thank you.
time. And thank you all for
Thank you,
joining us
Jim.
today.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.